Hi there, Mr. Dragonbeard. So I had an exchange today with an Andrew from Freedom from Religion Foundation. I decided to make a quick video in response, not so much directly to him, but just to have my position clear and to encourage other people to think along these lines to consider what I've had to consider over the last couple of years. So I've had a podcast for years called Apostasy Now. People know I'm an atheist. People know I'm a secularist. I'm a skeptic. What I am not is I am not a leftist. I don't think in terms of Marxism, which is to say class is not my concern. I am a classic liberal, which means the individual is the basis of all law, in my opinion, for a free society. And why I say that is that despite all the little tricky words that are used these days, identity politics is a form of Marxism, which is it thinks in terms of class struggle. And it believes the government should resolve all problems and govern all major important things. So anyways, Freedom from Religion Foundation, like other atheist organizations, purport to speak for us and to act for us. And they do not speak for me. I oppose them because I find their methods deplorable and their tactics dishonest. I do not support many of their conclusions, and I don't like the way that they pretend to speak for me. And there are many other atheists who feel the same. And if you have not become aware of this, hopefully this video will cause you to consider whether or not you should speak out when people give you the opportunity to not be included automatically in a demographic, special interest group that speaks for an entire demographic. Okay, so Andrew, the entire situation here, it begins with, let me jump over here. Well, that comes later. All right, so Ali Rizvi. Now, I've met him as well as other people that are from the secular jihadists. It's a great podcast. Ex-Muslims like to talk about different issues around secularism, religion, and they had a small clip here from their podcast. This is Armin Navabi down here. Now, I find him to be outstanding, and more people should pay attention to him. He has the great ability of, first of all, he's extremely intelligent, but he has the great ability of playing devil's advocate and really questioning different sides rather than simply falling in line. He's particularly gifted at this, and you will see in this video he catches an extreme claim in this little clip here from this attorney speaking on behalf of the FFRF. And I'm going to continue to point this out through this video. Once a person identifies themselves as an activist and begins to act that way, that means I cannot respect their professional credentials any more than any other activist. It is an emotional position with conclusions already set, and everything flows from the belief system. So let's start this up.
Obviously,
so
not
can you tell us
I don't know why I felt the need to pause that.
a few of the ways that you mentioned Trump has been really bad for church-state separation? Can you give us like a few reasons why that has been so?
Sure. I mean, one of them is what we're talking about right now. He's appointing terrible, terrible judges who have specifically said that they want to tear down the wall of separation between state and church. That's one of the big ones.
They've actually said that?
Kavanaugh has actually said that.
What the fuck?
This is okay. So just
Wait,
for the
so
audience,
he's saying
Kavanaugh is a new appointee that Trump appointed to the Supreme Court, who will most likely be confirmed.
Wait, how could he
that's
say
what
that?
it
He's
looks
saying
like.
I'm against the Constitution?
He's saying he says that the wall of separation between state and church is a bad metaphor based on bad history, and has all but said that he will overturn it.
He has all but said, all right, but he's also making statements that he is against the Constitution, which is what Armin is getting him here for. And you can see the look of incredulity. What kind of a judge in good standing can behave this way? And why are we not seeing this sourced in the many leftist publications and news stations? Well, of course, because it's an extreme claim and we need an actual citation. And Dreamy Eyes here is going to not give one.
So, I mean, he's one vote out of 9, but there are others on there who almost certainly agree with him. It's one of the reasons that we are fighting his nomination so hard.
Is there hope of that?
There is no hope. just to jump to the conclusion there. And I say to him here on Twitter, your guest is making a ludicrous claim about this appointee. Citation. Instead of replying to it, he makes fun of the fact that my spell check put the wrong "your" in, which, you know, it's a little irritating. But so I go, how about obfuscate? Did I spell that correctly? State your case. Now, this is one of the things you'll notice. Anyone who's been involved in debates between creationists and evolutionists, believers and atheists, will know that the atheists have for years said, if you are going to make a claim, it is your obligation, the onus is on you to support it, not the person who is simply not subscribing to it. So he makes this insane claim, and he comes back. This is an attorney. That's what I mean. Once you become an activist, I can't take you seriously as anything but an activist. State your case if you have one. You made a claim in this video clip, I say back, citation or retraction. And he says, that's not a case. What statement do you disagree with? Then see my body of writing on your disagreement, then bring me your objection. I say, the forum is public, and I'm not obligated to dig through your life's work. You made the plain claim. You need to support it. Review the short video, which he is the focus of. By the way, he is in it. He said these things, but apparently he needs to review it. A judge who advocates religious law and contradicts the Constitution outright? Citation. So he gives me a link to a video. I'm sure you'll be shocked to find out that it is an FFRF propaganda video. Brett Kavanaugh is a wrecking ball aimed at the wall of separation between church and state, right? Even though he himself had to admit he has not said that he would tear down this wall. He simply stated his opinion about people's behavior and interpretation of how they see that. Quote, this is all from available information. Oh, you know, like a creation would say, hey, evidence of God is all around you. You know, just take a look. If you don't want to see it, you can't see it. Imagine what's in the records they're hiding. Oh, conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. And then the activism part. Call your senator and tell them blah, 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 blah. All right, let's watch this. We're looking for a citation that this judge is opposed to the Constitution.
Donald Trump nominated Brett Kavanaugh to be
heck?
the next Supreme Court
this
justice.
thing to
He
work.
is a D.C. Circuit Court judge right now. He is as conservative as they come and will be a nightmare for the separation of state and church, among many other progressive issues. In terms of liberal to conservative, left to right,
God damn it.
he falls in the
I hate you, Twitter. For the record, Twitter sucks. All right, let's try this again. Hello, Twitter. Jeez.
Donald Trump nominated Brett Kavanaugh to be
Director
the
of
next
Strategic
Supreme Court
Response.
Justice. He is a D.C. Circuit Court judge right now. He is as conservative as they come and will be a nightmare for the separation of state and church, among many other progressive issues. In terms of liberal to conservative, left to right, he falls on the extreme conservative side, or will fall on the extreme conservative side of the court if he's...
Okay, so when you watch a shampoo commercial and they give you a computer graphic about how well this shampoo works on your hair, you should always be skeptical of the graphics you're watching because they are not reflective of reality. They are interpretation and presentation. So what you can see here is part of an image, and it is showing that Kavanaugh is sitting over here next to Adolf Hitler, I'm assuming. And so this is the closest thing this video is going to come to having a citation of any kind. Now this shows nothing. The video intends to give no information. You can't find this video that I can find on their website. It's simply a Twitter post. Possibly they have it on YouTube somewhere, but I have seen nothing to back up. So I looked up 538 on my own, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But let's finish the rest of the video, and I'll tell you why this graphic is, in my opinion, deployed to convince people, not to inform people.
confirmed. He will be more conservative than Justice Gorsuch, Roberts, Alito, even more conservative than Justice Scalia if he were still around. Just about level with Clarence Thomas. So this is an extreme judicial nominee. And for state church,
he's an extreme nominee, people. This nice attorney here who's very professional. He's got all these books behind him. See, he's very smart, very nice professional background, like doctors with their lab coats, a medicine commercial. He's telling you how to have your conclusions. He's not giving you any citations. He's simply assuring you, hey, you should believe this guy's extreme. He's very dangerous. Emotionally provoking words.
He's been also very extreme. He has specifically said that the wall of separation, which is the metaphor that Jefferson used to describe the relation between state and church, should be torn down.
Okay, so they show the citation from the Jefferson quote, which is very easily accessible and most people know. He paraphrases in his own words what he thinks this judge is saying about it and what that means, and gives no citation.
In the Supreme Court case Santa Fe v. Doe, which struck down student-led prayers at public schools that were delivered over the public address system at school events, Kavanaugh wrote a brief to the Supreme Court, and in it he said some pretty hostile things about those of us who advocate for the separation of state and church.
Okay, so he writes a brief, not as a person on the Supreme Court, but his opinions and his analyzation, and this guy finds it hostile. But he's not presenting it like he finds it hostile. He's presenting it like it is a fact that it was hostile. Everything about this is from this, vacuum cleaner salesman going door to door, giving us his opinion about this stuff. But he presents it all as if it's fact, which it is not. It is his opinion.
He called us absolutists. He argued that we were trying to create an Orwellian world. He said that we were basically trying to cleanse the world of religion. He used some really hyperbolic and hostile language that should be alarming to anybody who cares about state-church separation.
Okay, so his feelings are hurt because this guy finds left-wing extreme activism, which has become more and more commonplace in schools, in courtrooms, in government, in every facility of life, that this judge finds them to be Orwellian. Well, he's not the only one, right? Where's FFRF when destructive ideologies are pushed into the schools, are pushed into law, are pushed into the public forum onto other people that have no choice in it, behind parents' backs often, about belief systems like there's no such thing as gender? No problem. Or how about the fact that white people are really awful, or men are toxic? FFRF, fine with that. In fact, they're in alignment with that. And that's really what this is about. FFRF is a propaganda machine that aims its sights at replacing one belief system with another, which is where they differ from me. I believe in having a society that is truly secular, which means nobody is persecuted and people are free to live their life as long as they are not hurting other people. And I don't use lies and distortions and emotional tactics to get there.
And he also specifically said that he would overturn the central test of state-church separation, the Lemon Test. And in another case, as D.C. Circuit Judge, he actually said that he would allow prayers at presidential inaugurations and the Chief Justice to edit the presidential oath that's laid out in the Constitution in Article 2 to allow the words, "So help me God," to be added to that. He said that those are constitutional, even though an atheist and FFRF were challenging those practices. The court said we couldn't challenge them. The inauguration had already happened. Kavanaugh said we should have lost because of history and tradition. Basically because this had been going on since George Washington, so we got to let it keep happening.
No citations that these were his claims as a judge. These were opinions if they were stated, and they are tradition, whether they go back to George Washington or not. And the minority here, who are the real extremists? The majority of Americans are fine with saying under God when the president gets sworn in, this sort of thing. The vast minority are against it. And this is part of the left-wing push for multiculturalism and all this kind of nonsense, where what I do is I prioritize. Do I want to hear about God when someone's going into a high office? No, I don't. That's true. But is it going to hurt me? Nope, it's not going to hurt me. What's going to hurt me is people going after children in schools behind parents' backs and pushing parents out and teaching them anti-science crap that's going to confuse them and hurt them. It's going to be about overtaxation and spending my money on political beliefs rather than allowing me to earn my money and spend it as I see fit, which is a primary liberty, which is what liberal is supposed to mean.
even though George Washington didn't add those words. FFRF was prepared for any one of the 4 nominees. We had a press release ready to go, we had an action alert ready to go, and we're working on questions and prepping the
Action alert. This is activism, pure and simple. These people present themselves like an institution that deals with law and tries to be objective. They're not. They're completely one-sided.
this information to get it to friendly senators on the Judiciary Committee who hopefully will grill Kavanaugh and put him through his paces. We got our press release out within 2 minutes of the announcement. An action alert already went out as well. And if people want to sign up for those action alerts and know when big things like this are happening and what they can do, they ought to just text FFRF to 52886, and they would have known within minutes exactly what they could do to help us.
By the way, FFRF it gets tax exemption like a church. It's very similar, and they attack constantly churches' right to have tax exemption on the grounds that they're politically active. Hello, what am I seeing right here? Political activism from a group that gets the exact same kind of discount on taxation exemption that churches do. Hypocrites.
Stop this extremist nominee. There is a path to victory here, and it's important that people act like it. This is not a foregone conclusion. We can stop this extremist nominee. The first thing people need to do is contact their senators, and they really ought to be doing this every single day. And you might have an excuse like I'm in a deep red state or I'm in a deep blue state. You should still be contacting your senator. It is incredibly important that they hear from you on this issue. And if
Yes, this fish-faced person that I've just freeze-framed in an unbecoming way wants you to go after the government for his political views because they're a non-profit organization and only churches should have their non-profit status taken away for such things.
you haven't gotten action alerts, again, text FFRF to 52886 will help you contact your senators. Facebook, Twitter, email, call. Very easy.
All right, that's it. The rest is just pure activism. I'm not going to go through the rest. All right, so let's go through. Oh, look, here's the page that you come to when you pop up the videos on their YouTube page for FFRF. And the very first line I already see, it's time to quit the Catholic Church. So FFRF, they censor people who don't agree with their left-wing agenda. I know this for a fact because not only because other people I know have had this happen, but I went up to their Facebook page a couple years ago. I have a podcast that I've run for years called Apostasy Now. It was a secular guest. I put the post up on their Facebook. First, I was insulted and berated by one of their admins, and then it was deleted. And when I sent an email to their head office to ask why it had been censored, they said, well, there's other people that run it. We can't be held responsible for that. And it must not have fit into our specific guidelines of legal activism against church-state inclusion. In other words, it's not what we do. But apparently it's okay when it fits their political agenda right on their own YouTube video page. It's time to quit the Catholic Church. This has nothing to do with church-state separation. It's pure activism. It's totally left-wing nonsense. I'm not defending the Catholic Church and their behavior that's in the news right now. I'm not a part of the Catholic Church. I am simply stating this is bullshit. Here's their page. Here's the guy, Andrew Seidel. I do not know this university that he graduated from, but he's got a BS in neuroscience and environmental science. Environmental science right away gives me a cautionary flag. He eventually got awards for excellence in environmental law, and then he went on to study human rights, another flag, red flag, international law, University of Amsterdam, and he says here 4.0 GPA. That's very good. So I mean, I'm going to assume his education is really good, but to me, all of this shows is, as Michael Shermer himself and many other people have pointed out, is that studies show that educated and intelligent people can actually be more thick-headed about their belief systems than people who are lesser educated or lower intelligence, because they come to assume that they must be correct and other people are dumb. All of this shows me is that he has thrown away all of this reasoning that he should have accomplished and is better understanding of how to communicate things in an honest way for his his foregone conclusions. He has a belief first, and everything flows from it. This is why I have no respect anymore for activists. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. I'm blabbering a lot, but here's a random post searching for the people, and this is what the left doesn't take any responsibility for. You people are coming across as lunatics, and you can't be trusted, and this is why people are more and more voting in conservatives, and you are losing elections. You need to take responsibility for this. Like, listen to this nonsense.
What's at stake is freedom for LGBTQ Americans.
Right away
for
into identity
equal
politics.
rights, for civil rights, for voting rights, for
Some white lady speaking for all these different groups. This guy is, of course, Adolf Hitler.
We won't stand for Donald Trump's attempt
Human rights
to
campaign.
use the Supreme Court as a weapon against all of our progress.
Emotional. Everything is emotional hysteria. The left has degenerated. It is unbelievable what has become of them. Let's see if I can find it on this Guardian post.
I'd like to be recognized to ask
So,
a question before
in these
we
things, it's
proceed.
a
The
security
committee
issue.
received just
You are not
last
allowed to
night,
protest
less
inside
than
this
15
space.
hours ago,
Because security
more than
agents don't know whether you're going
2,000
to
pages
simply
of
break the
documents
rules
that we
with
have
a
not had
scream
an
fit
opportunity to
and a
review
poster,
or read
or whether you're
or
going to break the
analyze.
rules as an alarmist and an activist and try and kill somebody.
I agree with my colleague. Mr. Chairman, I therefore move.
You hear them screaming like lunatics. Oppressing who? The security has to take them like children and pull them out so that they can carry on with the grown-up work that's going on.
Command order. Chuck. We're not in executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I
And then we
ask
have
for
groups
roll
like
call
Antifa
vote.
that really are violent on the street from the left. And again, what do we hear from FFRF? Nothing. Because it's a tacit understanding that they believe in the same thing as these groups and these individuals. And I simply, as a priority, I just can't get on board with this stuff anymore. Here, let's play a little of Neil deGrasse Tyson on this.
Like arguing and debating meaning of things. For me, it's however people are using the word, that's the meaning. I concede that.
Well, we can see
By the way,
those
it's
things.
why I don't call myself an atheist. It's why. You can look up the dictionary definition of atheist, and it kind of applies to me. But what is the definition of atheist in practice? It is what leading atheists do, and it's their conduct, and it's their behavior, and it's what they say, and it's their attitude.
Mm-hmm.
That is what an atheist is today, because they're the most visible exemplars of that word. And most of their conduct, I either don't agree with or simply don't engage in.
What don't you agree with?
I don't debate religious people and tell them they're idiots. I don't.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Whether or not it works, it's not in me to do that. I don't purge myself of words that have religious foundations in them. I once, in my Facebook, I had a friend going up in orbit to repair the Hubble telescope, one of the astronauts, and I said, Godspeed. Mm-hmm. And then I gave the astronaut's name. People wrote in the thread, said, I thought you were an atheist. How could you say Godspeed? An atheist got angry with me? And I said...
This explanation is about to apply exactly to what the FFRF guy was just wrangling on about when presidents are sworn in and the oath that they take. And that he dismisses tradition. And I am entirely with Neil deGrasse Tyson on this, about how tradition works.
Okay, first of all, this phrase is deeply historical in the space program. When John Glenn was launched, the headline was Godspeed, John Glenn. And every mission where we send human beings into space, somewhere there's that reference in the NASA family.
What does that word mean?
I'll tell you what it means.
Please do.
Okay? So, by the way, I'll get to that in just 1 minute.
Take your time.
The atheists who are arguing that I was using Godspeed as a phrase, they all have used the phrase goodbye, haven't they? See you later, goodbye.
Right.
Where does that word come from? It's from God be with you. It's a contraction of those three words.
He goes on more about this, and he gets really worked up about the way atheists get on his case and the ignorance behind it. And I entirely agree. Here's another atheist, Justicar. I recommend his channel. He's great at explaining legal matters to the layperson. And he's going to do, I'm just going to grab a little bit of what he has to say here about another justice that gets a lot of shit from the left, which is Justice Antonin Scalia.
Howdy y'all. This video is about Justice Scalia, who was my favorite justice for a long time. My favorite two justices for a long while were Justices Scalia and Breyer, but recently Kagan's been edging Breyer out. Anyway, Justice Scalia brought to the law the things that I like in a judge, that no matter whether he agreed with you or whether he disagreed with you, he did everyone the courtesy of telling them exactly what he thought, exactly what his views were, what the result in the case should be based on his reasoning.
So what you got to catch from what he's saying here, and there's a lot more material from him, but this portion is what he's talking about. It's very important. When a judge tells you what he thinks, it is not attached to him trying to force the law in that direction. He is giving you his reasoning, and reasoning is a discourse between professionals and scholars about this material, which is important for society to move along these lines rather than just the case. And it is critical to know what their exact thinking is. And he's going to talk a little bit here about the clear language.
And very clearly stating what his reasoning for it is. He used language to clarify rather than to obscure parts of the law. Other justices, like Justice Kennedy, when he writes, they're very over the top and saccharine and convoluted, and it's really hard to distill down what he's trying to talk about. I think he would have been well served if he'd been a philosopher or perhaps a poet. Not the most fun legal writing that you'll ever read. Justice Scalia, on the other hand, was a master draftsman, which is strange because he didn't really like writing. He liked having written, but not the actual writing itself, and yet...
Anyways, that gives you the idea where he's going with this. And then the last one that I'm... okay, well, you know what, before I go to the last one here about judges, we're going to deal with this image. The image that was shown in the video. Here's the full image, and I had to look up the source myself. This is from 538.com, right? And they have a link to the Washington Post, a leftist publication, but I'm like, you know what, let's ignore that and go. And they have a link to the same image to another spot. As you can see in the figure below, we estimated. This means that the image was created by Washington Post from this source as they interpreted it. Wait, why am I clicking that again? I already have it up. So here we are. Here's the study, 29 pages. And as you can see, unless you are into algebra and algorithms, very quickly you're going to see that the average person, the layperson, is not going to know what the fuck is going on in this publication, this study. But I can tell you that even though I'm not an expert, I've gone through enough, and I can tell you that this is material which is limited, like all studies are. It is not meant for public consumption with a simple graph to sum it all up to say whether someone is simply left wing or right wing. There is a great deal of information to go through here, and it cannot be summed up this way. Anyone who sums it up that way has an agenda, plain and simple. And on that note, this is from the late 70s or the early 80s. I think it's the early 80s. Thomas Sowell is a respected economist and scholar, and he's going to lay out exactly what I'm talking about here, about how people try and use data to twist people's opinions rather than being clear on the fact that what he calls judicial activism is a real danger, which is judges who believe that they have a moral obligation to do the right thing rather than simply interpret and enforce the law as it is, which is what they should be doing.
What Mr. Bork has fought against consistently over the years has been, in his words, government by judges who are not applying the Constitution. Against this background of historic issues about the very meaning of law, it is both ironic and appalling that Judge Bork's own record is being judged on a myopic basis of an issue-by-issue statistical box score on how he has allegedly voted for or against one class of litigants or another, as if he liked chemical companies more than he liked pregnant women, or liked asbestos manufacturers better than he liked bereaved widows. Surely no responsible person thinks that this is what law is all about. Yet such shrill propaganda from special interest groups is repeated in respectable quarters as if the statistics represented some objective fact. Many people have no idea how utterly worthless and therefore deceptive such statistical box scores can be. Last year this time in California, there was a bitter election campaign over the re-election of the state Chief Justice. During that campaign, one side cited statistics to show that the Chief Justice had voted for defendants 85% of the time over a period of nearly a decade. The other side, using exactly the same raw statistical data for exactly the same span of years, concluded that the Chief Justice had voted for the prosecution nearly 90% of the time. Well, these are not small differences, either in terms of numbers or implications. Neither were they based on any esoteric statistical methods. All that they depended upon were differences in definition as to what was a vote for the prosecution. The statistics thrown around recklessly as to how Judge Bork has allegedly voted against women X% of the time or for some other class of litigants Y% of the time are no more reliable than the definitions used by the special interest sources from which they come. Arbitrary definitions are no less arbitrary when they are expressed in numbers rather than words. Taking these box scores seriously reflects either a dangerously naive gullibility about statistics or an even more dangerously cynical view of the truth. The same kind of box score approach has been used against Judge Bork in the racial area, except that all the things Mr. Bork has done to advance the civil rights of blacks and Asians are either ignored or played down, while every legal question he has raised about any portion of any civil rights law or court decision has been automatically defined by his critics as being anti-civil rights or anti-black. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if I believed any of that.
So you can see that things haven't changed. You know, decades later, we're still in the same spot that people like Thomas Sowell warned us about, that we are still being presented by these special interest groups, their heavy interpretations of things. They try to use propaganda in the form of twisted statistics, and the layperson's lack of understanding of the specifics of how these specialized fields in law work. The whole point is to get activist judges on the bench, and that is where I oppose people like this gentleman and his organization, Freedom from Religion Foundation. I will not support them, and I encourage other people to join me in not supporting them. If you are an atheist, a skeptic, if you are any person from any demographic, and organizations are insisting on their own political agenda, whenever the opportunity comes up, make sure people know they don't speak for you. Just like the LGBTQ whatever organization movement does not speak for all people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, etc. People from Black Lives Matter do not speak for all black people, right? Even unions, really, though they legally do, they don't really even speak for all of their members. This is a deception, and it's used as a political sledgehammer. I think these people are dishonest, and I will point it out when they are and how they are. And I believe this has become, like many atheist groups, completely contaminated with ideological toxins, Marxist ways of thinking, and I oppose them.